The air in the conference room feels like ice, sterile and sharp, cutting through the expensive perfume and the scent of old paper. I stand by the door, a simple folder clutched in my hand, watching the men seated around the polished mahogany table. They are his world, the pillars of his success. And he sits among them, confident, oblivious, charting futures he believes are secure. He hasn't seen me yet. My lawyer is a quiet shadow beside me. The only sound is the low hum of the overhead lights and the distant city murmur filtering through the tall windows. My heart is a frantic bird trapped in my chest, beating a rhythm against my ribs that feels deafening in the silence. This is it. The moment where everything changes, where the carefully constructed lies begin to unravel. Let me know where you're watching from and what time it is right now. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. It helps me more than you know. Life before felt golden, I suppose. Or maybe it just felt solid. Like a house built on bedrock, sturdy and capable of weathering any storm. We built it together, brick by brick, or at least that's what I believed. The house itself, yes, a sprawling place on a hill with views that stole your breath. But the life inside it too. Shared dinners, quiet evenings, the comfortable routine of two lives woven together. He was ambitious, driven. I admired that, supported it. My career was less demanding, by design, allowing me to be the anchor, the one who kept the home fires burning, the social calendar filled, the background hum of life steady so he could soar.
He soared, all right.
His company grew, expanded. There were late nights, business trips, the usual sacrifices success demands. I understood. I was the supportive wife, the one who listened to the stresses, offered quiet encouragement, celebrated the victories. We had plans. Retirement by the coast. Travel. Maybe starting a small foundation for something we both cared about. They felt real. Tangible. The future was a painting we were coloring in together, vibrant and full of promise. The first crack in the foundation was so small, I barely noticed it. A hush phone call he ended abruptly when I walked into the room. A strange withdrawal from our joint savings account, a large one, explained away as a necessary business expense, a bridge loan that would be repaid quickly. He was always so plausible, so confident in his explanations. Why would I doubt him? This was the man I shared my bed with, my life with. The man who knew my deepest fears and quietest hopes. The cracks widened, slowly at first, then accelerating with a terrifying speed. More business expenses that didn't add up. Evasive answers. A coldness in his eyes that I'd never seen before, reserved for rivals or people he deemed beneath him, suddenly directed at me when I dared to ask too many questions. He started spending more time away, even when he wasn't traveling. Working late became the norm. Dinners alone. The comfortable silence we once shared was replaced by an uncomfortable, heavy silence filled with unspoken accusations and growing distance. Then came the letter. A formal, stark document from a bank I didn't recognize, asking about a significant loan taken out against our primary residence, a loan I had no knowledge of, one requiring both our signatures. Except, mine was clearly forged. It wasn't even a good forgery. A clumsy, almost insulting imitation of my name scrawled across the paper. That was the inciting incident. The moment the bedrock crumbled and the house began to shake. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was a violation. A fundamental breach of trust so profound, it felt like a physical blow. This wasn't the man I married. This was a stranger wearing his face, willing to gamble with our home, our security, my very identity, without a flicker of conscience. When I confronted him, he didn't deny it. Not exactly. He spun it. A necessary evil, a temporary measure, something he had to do to save the company, protect our future. He said it was complex, that I wouldn't understand the pressures he was under. He painted himself as the hero, making tough choices for the greater good, while I was the naive partner who couldn't handle the reality of his world. But the forged signature, there was no spinning that. No justifying it. He just looked away, a muscle twitching in his jaw. I said I wanted a divorce. That's when he said it. The line that still echoes in the quiet moments. He looked at me, not with sadness, not with regret, but with pure, icy contempt. He tilted his head back slightly, a patronizing smirk playing on his lips. "You'll regret this divorce," he said, his voice low and utterly confident. "You think you can walk away and be fine? You have no idea how much you depend on me. I built this life. I can dismantle yours just as easily. You'll regret leaving me. Believe me." It wasn't a threat, not really. It was a prophecy, delivered with absolute certainty. He genuinely believed that without him, I would crumble. That my life, my identity, was so intertwined with his success and provision that divorce would leave me adrift, destitute, and desperate. His arrogance was breathtaking and terrifying, because a part of me, the part that had relied on him for so long, whispered a chilling agreement. Early struggles were brutal. The moment I filed, the mask dropped completely. He became hostile, vindictive. True to his word, he started trying to dismantle my life. He froze our joint accounts, leaving me with almost nothing liquid. He canceled credit cards that were in my name but linked to his business account, leaving me stranded during a simple grocery run. He used his legal team, aggressive and well-funded, to bury my lawyer in paperwork, delay proceedings, and contest every single point. His objective was clear: make it so financially and emotionally painful that I would break, backtrack, or settle for whatever pittance he decided to throw my way. He wanted to prove his prophecy true. He wanted me to regret it. Every obstacle felt deliberately placed, designed to wear me down. Phone calls that hung up the moment I answered. Lawyers demanding documents that didn't exist. Accusations of frivolous spending, of being unstable. He was trying to paint a picture of me that was unrecognizable, both to the court and, subtly, to the few friends we still shared. Rising challenges mounted daily. The legal fees alone were astronomical. My small savings dwindled. The house, our home, became a battleground. He refused to leave, making living there unbearable. Every encounter was fraught with tension, cold stares, veiled insults. He'd leave passive-aggressive notes, reminders of things I couldn't afford or access anymore. He thrived on the control, on watching me struggle. He started spreading rumors, whispers among mutual acquaintances, that I was unstable, that I had exorbitant debts, that I was leaving him for some imagined lover, that I was being unreasonable in the divorce demands. He twisted the narrative, making himself look like the wronged party, forced to take drastic measures because of my sudden, irrational decision. It worked on some people. Friendships became strained, then broke entirely. I felt isolated, exposed. The regret he promised felt closer every day. My lawyer, a kind but weary woman who had seen it all, advised me to focus on a fair settlement, to just get out. She warned that fighting him on every point, especially given his resources and ruthlessness, would be a long, exhausting, and expensive battle. The forged signature was serious, yes, but proving he intended to defraud me in a divorce context, rather than just taking a temporary business risk, could be tricky. The burden of proof felt impossibly heavy. I was close to giving up. The emotional toll was immense. The constant fighting, the financial strain, the feeling of being hunted and cornered. Sleep offered little reprieve, filled with anxious thoughts and replaying conversations. I lost weight. My focus at my own job suffered. I felt like I was drowning, dragged under by the weight of his contempt and the inertia of the legal system. He was winning. His prophecy seemed destined to come true. Then came the midpoint shift. It wasn't a sudden revelation, more of a slow burn, like an ember finally catching fire. I was sitting alone in the silent house one evening, the rooms feeling vast and empty without the pretense of a shared life. I was looking at old photos, snapshots of a couple who seemed genuinely happy. And I remembered the person I was before him, before the life we built became a cage. I wasn't weak. I wasn't helpless. I had my own mind, my own capabilities. His prophecy, "You'll regret this," played on repeat in my head. And suddenly, It didn't sound like a prediction anymore. It sounded like a desperate wish. He wanted me to regret it. His entire strategy was built on the premise that I couldn't survive without him. But what if that wasn't true? What if the only way to truly not regret it was to dismantle his certainty, to show him that I was not only capable of surviving, but of thriving, perhaps even at his expense? My focus shifted. It wasn't just about getting a divorce anymore. It was about reclaiming my power, about proving him wrong in the most definitive way possible. It was about turning the tables. His vulnerability wasn't his finances in general. It was the source of his power, his company, and specifically his relationship with his business partners. They were everything to him, his identity, his status, his worth. What if the key wasn't just the forged loan, but why he needed it? What was he hiding from them? The deepening crisis continued outside this internal shift. He pushed harder, filed motions to force the sale of the house immediately, leaving me nowhere to go. Threatened to expose embarrassing personal details if I didn't agree to his terms. The legal battle was a meat grinder, chewing up my resources and my spirit. It truly felt like all was lost, that I was hanging on by a thread about to snap. My lawyer reiterated the difficulty, the risk. Everyone advised caution, compromise. But the voice inside, the one that had been quiet for so long, was now a clear, insistent bell. I couldn't just survive. I had to fight. Not just for money, but for justice, for my dignity, for the simple, undeniable truth. His prophecy would not come true. The turning point wasn't a single event, but a determined decision. I stopped just reacting to his moves and started planning my own. My objective was no longer just divorce. It was to expose him where it would hurt him most. I needed evidence not just of his betrayal to me, but of something that betrayed them, his partners, his company, the very foundation he stood on. I started digging. Quietly.
Systematically.
I knew his habits, his routines, the places he kept things. The study was the most likely place. Late at night, while he was out or asleep in a separate room, I began searching. Not for divorce papers or legal documents. My lawyer handled that. I was looking for anything that felt off, anything hidden. It was tedious, frustrating work. Hours spent sifting through old files, checking obscure computer folders I knew he used, looking for anomalies. My eyes burned. My fingers were dusty. Hope would surge with a promising lead, then fizzle into disappointment. There were moments I felt crazy, rummaging through the remnants of our life together, like a detective in a stale, unhappy crime scene. Then I found it. Not in a hidden drawer or a locked file. It was simpler, bolder, somehow. Tucked away in an archived email folder, buried under layers of corporate jargon and spam. A chain of emails between him and a key client, discussing a complex transaction. And within that chain, a separate, seemingly innocent attachment. An Excel file. Opening it felt momentous. Like unlocking a hidden door. It wasn't immediately clear. Rows and columns of numbers. Transaction dates. Account names. But as I read, cross-referencing with other documents I'd found scattered around the house, it began to paint a picture. A picture of double billing. Of shell companies. Of funds being diverted. Not just small amounts.
Millions.
Over years. Hidden from his partners, from their investors, from the tax authorities. It was elaborate, sophisticated fraud. The forged loan? A desperate attempt to cover a hole somewhere in this tangled mess. This wasn't just about our divorce anymore. This was criminal. And it wasn't just me he had betrayed. He had betrayed the very people who trusted him, who built the company with him, who staked their reputations and fortunes on his leadership. The weight of the folder in my hands now feels less like a burden and more like a shield. Or maybe a weapon. My lawyer looked at the evidence, her usual weary expression replaced by a look of stunned silence, then grim understanding. This, she said, her voice barely a whisper, changes everything. We didn't go straight to the court. We planned. Meticulously. His partnership agreement had clauses. Serious misconduct, financial malfeasance, grounds for immediate expulsion, forfeiture of shares, maybe even civil action against him. We knew his partners were meeting today, for their quarterly review. It was the perfect time. A meeting he would be at, feeling secure in control. So here I am, standing by the door. The air still feels like ice. My heart is still a frantic bird, but its beat is changing. Less fear, more cold resolve. He looks up.
Sesme.
His confident smile falters. His eyes narrow. Confusion, then irritation. He glances at my lawyer, then back at me, a silent question in his gaze. What am I doing here? This isn't my world anymore. This is his domain. My lawyer steps forward, speaks calmly, formally. Gentlemen, she says, her voice cutting through the silence, we apologize for the intrusion. My client has some information relevant to the financial status and ethical conduct of your company that we believe you need to see immediately. His face pales. He starts to rise, a protest forming on his lips. What is this? You can't. One of the senior partners, a man I've known for years through company events, holds up a hand, stopping him. He looks at me, his expression questioning, concerned. What information, Mrs. Smith? He asks. My lawyer hasn't used my new name yet. He still thinks of me as part of the unit. I step forward. I hold up the folder. It feels surprisingly heavy. Evidence, I say, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. Evidence of certain financial irregularities. Schemes that appear to have defrauded not just clients, but the company itself. I look directly at him. At my husband. His eyes are wide now, a flicker of panic replacing the arrogance. I don't speak directly to him. I speak to the men around the table. I explain, calmly, concisely, what the documents show. The double billing, the shell companies, the diverted funds. I don't editorialize. I don't express outrage or pain. I just lay out the facts, referencing the documents in the folder. My lawyer passes copies around. The silence that falls is different from the silence before. It's heavy with shock, disbelief, dawning horror. The men around the table pick up the copies, their brows furrowed. They scan the pages, whispers starting low, then growing in intensity. Numbers are pointed at. Emails are cross-referenced. The carefully constructed facade of his success begins to crack, then shatter. He is trying to interrupt, sputtering denials, calling it lies, fabrication, a desperate act of revenge. But his voice is losing its power, drowned out by the murmurs of his partners, the rustle of paper, the undeniable figures staring up from the pages. One partner looks at him, his face a mask of anger and betrayal. Is this true? He asks, his voice tight. My husband shakes his head, vehemently.
No.
It's a setup. She's lying. She's bitter about the divorce. She's trying to ruin me. He turns to me, his eyes blazing with a desperate fury. You'll regret this, he hisses, the prophecy turned into a curse. I meet his gaze. I don't flinch. I don't say a word.
I don't need to.
The documents speak for themselves. The men around the table aren't looking at me anymore. They're looking at him. And their faces are cold, hard, accusing. They start talking amongst themselves, their voices low, urgent. They talk about the partnership agreement, about fiduciary duty, about legal implications. Words like fraud, misappropriation, expulsion hang in the air. His protests become weaker, more frantic. He tries to explain, to justify, to minimize. But the evidence is undeniable. He is cornered. His empire, built partly on deceit, is crumbling before his eyes, in the very room where he felt most powerful. Then, one by one, they turn away from him, physically turn their chairs slightly. The senior partner, the one who asked me my name, looks at my lawyer.
We
will need time to process this, he says, his voice strained. Obviously, this is serious. We will be in touch. He looks at me. There's a flicker of something in his eyes. Not sympathy, not yet. But perhaps understanding. Perhaps even a grudging respect. I stood up to him. And I did it with proof. My lawyer nods. I nod. We turn to leave. As we reach the door, I hear sound.
A shocked sobe.
I pause. I look back. He is still sitting there, but his posture is collapsed. His head is in his hands. His shoulders are shaking. The confident, arrogant man who told me I would regret leaving him is weeping in front of the pillars of his world, the world that is now rejecting him.
He cried.
The man who swore he would dismantle my life, who was so certain of my ruin, cried when his business partners dropped him. He didn't cry because he was caught. He cried because he had lost the only thing he truly valued: his status, his power, his carefully crafted image of success. He regretted this. He regretted my evidence. He regretted that I was the one who brought his world down. Walking out of that room was like stepping out of a storm into an unnerving quiet. The tension released, leaving behind a strange mix of exhaustion and something else. Not elation, not triumph, not in the way I might have imagined.
It was colder than that.
A quiet satisfaction, a sense of having finally, definitively, proved him wrong. His prophecy had failed. Utterly. The aftermath wasn't a sudden burst of freedom, but a gradual unfolding. The divorce proceedings, which had dragged on painfully for months, accelerated dramatically. With the evidence of his financial misconduct exposed, his position was untenable. He couldn't fight anymore. He couldn't make demands. He couldn't use his power or influence. The settlement terms were favorable, reflecting not just the end of the marriage, but the consequences of his actions. The forged loan was dealt with. My financial security, which he tried so hard to destroy, was reestablished. He lost everything that mattered to him. The company he built cast him out. His reputation was in tatters. Legal troubles far beyond our divorce were lining up at his door, from his former partners, from clients, maybe even from the authorities. The man who had been so sure of my ruin was now facing his own, self-inflicted and delivered by my hand. There wasn't a moment of wild celebration. The years of emotional strain, the betrayal, the fear, they leave scars. You don't just walk away from that unscathed. There's a lingering sadness for the life that was lost, the potential that was wasted, the person I thought I married. But there was also a profound sense of reclaiming myself. The woman who walked into that conference room was different from the woman who filed for divorce. She was stronger, sharper, more resilient. She had faced down fear, navigated betrayal, and found her own quiet power. His attempt to dismantle me had, ironically, forced me to build myself back up, stronger than before. His prophecy was hollow. I didn't regret the divorce. Not for a single moment. The regret was all his. And knowing that, seeing the architect of my potential ruin brought low by his own actions and my quiet determination, it was a colder, harder kind of victory than I ever imagined. It wasn't about revenge. It was about justice, about truth, about proving that you don't need permission or even support to reclaim your life from someone who tried to take it from you. You just need quiet strength, unwavering resolve, and sometimes a folder full of irrefutable evidence. If you've ever had to fight for your life back, piece by piece, against someone who tried to break you, tell me your story in the comments below. And thank you for being here. Subscribing helps bring more of these stories to life.